All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning. I'm Anuja Kumar and with me is Saira Mujtaba. The headlines. Polling underway for 7th phase of Assembly elections in West Bengal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi orders setting up of 551 oxygen plants in hospitals from PM CARES Fund. Centre bans use of liquid oxygen for all non-medical purposes. ITBP run Sardar Patel COVID Care Centre to be made operational in Delhi this morning. Centre to continue giving COVID vaccine doses free of cost to states and union territories from its 50% quota. US government lifts export ban on essential raw materials required for manufacturing COVID vaccine in India. Indian women's recurve team bags gold medal at Archery World Cup in Guatemala. And Delhi Capitals beat Sunrisers Hyderabad through Super Over in IPL cricket. As the number of COVID cases is on the rise again, we appeal to our listeners not to lower their guard, take all precautions and all those above 45 years of age to get vaccinated without any hesitation. Stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. Polling is underway for the 7th phase of Assembly elections in West Bengal. Voting is taking place for 34 seats spread over 5 districts in this phase. Voting, which began at 7 this morning, will end at 6:30 p.m. The Election Commission has deployed 653 companies of central forces for this phase. Out of the 5 districts going to polls, 3 districts, Malda, Murshidabad and South Dinajpur, share borders with Bangladesh. Deployment of forces in these 3 bordering districts is far more than in the other 2 districts, indicating that the poll panel is trying to plug infiltration attempts during the elections. The move is aimed at preventing any kind of violence during the polling and ensuring free, fair and peaceful voting. The Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail (VVPAT) is being used along with electronic voting machine (EVM) at every polling station with a view to enhance the transparency and credibility of the election process, and the availability of adequate number of EVMs and VVPATs has already been ensured for the smooth conduct of elections. Now we go over live to our correspondent Sudhindra for latest updates of Assembly polls. Sudhindra, how is the 7th phase of election progressing?
Yes, Anuja, I'm at booth number 214 in Bhawanipur, which is the home turf of Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. And Bhawanipur is in South Kolkata and Chief Minister House is in Kalighat, which is also close by. The Member of Parliament Abhishek Banerjee is also close by. So, in this election, instead of Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, the TMJ senior leader and Minister Subhadev Chattopadhyay is contesting from here against actor Rudranil Ghosh of BJP. And being summer, the voters prefer morning to vote during all these phases of election. And I already see a queue building up here. A school has been converted into polling booth in this urban and mostly middle-class locality. And people seem to be aware of the grave situation created by the virus, COVID virus, and they are wearing masks, gloves, and head cover. There are circles drawn for the voters to maintain social distancing. And I see COVID protocols followed by the ASHA workers checking the temperature of the voters and pressing sanitizer drops into the palms of the voters, Anuja.
Sudhindra, who are the key candidates in this phase?
Yes, you see, there are 81,96,242 eligible voters in this phase where 268 candidates are in fray. I can mention a few candidates here, From Rajbihari seat, Lieutenant General Dr. Subrata Saha of BJP is contesting against TMC's Debashish Kumar. And Bharatiya Janata Party has fielded well-known economist and former Chief Economic Advisor Ashok Lahiri as its candidate for the Balurghat Assembly constituency in North Bengal's Dakshin Dinajpur district. He will take on Shekhar Dasgupta of TMC and Suchita Bishwas of RSP. The State Minister Firhad Hakim will test his luck from Kolkata Port constituency, where he has locked horns with BJP's Awad Kishore Gupta and Mohammad Mukhtar of Congress, Anuja.
Thank you, Sudhindra, for that update. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has urged people to exercise their franchise in the 7th phase of West Bengal elections. In a tweet, Mr. Modi called upon voters to follow all COVID-19 related protocols.
Polling is underway for the 3rd phase of Panchayat elections in 20 districts of Uttar Pradesh. Voting, which began at 7 this morning, will conclude at 6 p.m. The State Election Commission has ordered strict adherence to COVID protocols during polling. Voters will have to wear a mask and maintain social distancing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has ordered setting up of 551 oxygen plants inside government hospitals across the country. PM CARES Fund will provide financial aid in setting up of these plants. Mr. Modi also ordered the concerned authorities to make these plants functional as soon as possible. Prime Minister's office said, in line with Mr. Modi's direction to boost availability of oxygen to hospitals, PM CARES Fund has approved allocation of funds for the installation of 551 dedicated pressure swing adsorption PSA medical oxygen generation plants inside public health facilities. The PMO said these plants will be established in identified government hospitals in district headquarters in various states and union territories. The PMO said that such an in-house captive oxygen generation facility will address the day-to-day medical oxygen needs of these hospitals and the district. In addition, the liquid medical oxygen will serve as a top-up to the captive oxygen generation. Such a system will go a long way in ensuring that government hospitals in the districts do not face sudden disruption of oxygen supplies and have access to adequate uninterrupted oxygen supply to manage COVID-19 patients and other patients needing such support, the PMO said.
The Centre has directed states and union territories to ensure that liquid oxygen is exclusively used for medical purposes only. The exception to 9 industries has also been withdrawn in order to enhance availability of medical oxygen in the country. Union Home Secretary and Chairman, National Executive Committee, Ajay Bhalla, has written to the Chief Secretaries of the states and administrators of union territories in this regard. Mr. Bhalla has asked all manufacturing units to maximize their production of liquid oxygen and make it available to the government for use of medical purposes only with immediate effect until further orders. All stocks of liquid oxygen should also be made available to the government for use of medical purpose. Mr. Bhalla said no exception is allowed to any industry with regard to the use of liquid oxygen. In Delhi, 8 pressure swing adsorption PSA oxygen generation plants are being installed with the support of PM CARES funds to increase the medical oxygen capacity. Government sources said these plants will enhance capacity of medical oxygen by 14.4 metric tons. Of the 8 PSA plants to be installed in Delhi, 1 plant in Burari Hospital, Kaushik Enclave, has already been installed. 4 plants, 1 each at Deen Dayal Upadhyay Hospital, Lok Nayak Hospital, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Hospital, Rohini, and Deep Chand Bandhu Hospital, Ashok Vihar, are expected to be completed by the 30th of this month.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that in this period of COVID crisis, everyone is getting aware of the importance of vaccine. He appealed to the people not to get swayed by any rumor about the vaccine. Sharing his thoughts in Mann Ki Baat program on All India Radio, Mr. Modi said people above 45 years of age can benefit from the free vaccine that has been provided by the centre to all the state governments.
कोरोना की इस संकट काल में वैक्सीन की अहमियत सभी को पता चल रही है, इसलिए मेरा आग्रह है कि वैक्सीन को लेकर किसी भी अफवाह में न आए। आप सभी को मालूम भी होगा कि भारत सरकार की तरफ से सभी राज्य सरकारों को फ्री वैक्सीन भेजी गई है, जिसका लाभ 45 साल की उम्र के ऊपर के लोग ले सकते हैं। अब तो 1 मई से देश में 18 साल के ऊपर के हर व्यक्ति के लिए वैक्सीन उपलब्ध होने वाली है। अब देश का कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर, कंपनियां भी अपने कर्मचारियों को वैक्सीन लगाने के अभियान में भागीदारी निभा पाएगी। मुझे ये भी कहना है कि भारत सरकार की तरफ से मुफ्त वैक्सीन का जो कार्यक्रम अभी चल रहा है, वो आगे भी चलता रहेगा। मेरा राज्यों से भी आग्रह है कि वो भारत सरकार के इस मुफ्त वैक्सीन अभियान का लाभ अपने राज्य के ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों तक पहुंचाएं।
Mr. Modi also urged people to take the vaccine, follow all precautionary measures and stay safe. The Prime Minister said that we should not forget the mantra of Dawai bhi, Kadai bhi. He expressed hope that people will come out of this crisis soon.
देश के अलग अलग कोने में इस चुनौतीपूर्ण समय में भी स्वयंसेवी संगठन आगे आकर दूसरों की मदद के लिए जो भी कर सकते हैं वो करने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं। इस बार गांवों में भी नई जागरूकता देखी जा रही है। कोविड नियमों का सख्ती से पालन करते हुए लोग अपने गांव की कोरोना से रक्षा कर रहे हैं। जो लोग बाहर से आ रहे हैं उनके लिए सही व्यवस्थाएं भी बनाई जा रही हैं। शहरों में भी कई नौजवान सामने आए हैं जो अपने क्षेत्र में कोरोना के केस न बढ़े इसके लिए स्थानीय निवासियों के साथ मिलकर प्रयास कर रहे हैं। यानी एक तरफ देश दिन रात अस्पतालों, वेंटिलेटर्स और दवाइयों के लिए काम कर रहा है तो दूसरी ओर देशवासी भी जी जान से कोरोना की चुनौती का मुकाबला कर रहे हैं। आज हमारी सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता है इस बीमारी को हराना।
To meet the demand of medical oxygen, 551 dedicated pressure swing absorption medical oxygen generation plants will be set up at public health facilities across the country through PM CARES Fund. Under the scheme, oxygen generation plants will also be set up in 14 districts of Chhattisgarh. A report from our Raipur correspondent.
PSA oxygen generation plants will be set up in 14 districts of Chhattisgarh through PM CARES Fund. These districts are Bastar, Bijapur, Bilaspur, Dantewada, Dhamtari, Durg, Jashpur, Kanker, Korba, Koria, Mahasamund, Raigad, Raipur and Rajnandgaon. The basic aim is to further strengthen the public health system and ensure that each of these hospitals has a captive oxygen generation facility. Such an in-house captive oxygen generation facility would address the day-to-day medical oxygen needs of these hospitals and the district. In addition, the liquid medical oxygen would serve as a top-up to the captive oxygen generation. Such a system will go a long way in ensuring that government hospitals in the districts do not face sudden disruption of oxygen supplies and have access to adequate uninterrupted oxygen supply. Vikalp Shukla, AIR News, Raipur.
India's vaccination drive against COVID-19 crossed another milestone yesterday with administration of over 14 crore 9 lakh doses within 99 days of the world's largest vaccination program. The Health Ministry has informed that with more than 25 lakh 36,000 doses of COVID vaccine administered in the last 24 hours, India has become the fastest country to administer over 14 crore doses in a record time. The Gujarat government will provide free vaccinations for all above 18 years of age from 1st of May. This decision was taken during the high-level core committee meeting chaired by Chief Minister Vijay Rupani at Gandhinagar last evening. Meanwhile, Gujarat has recorded 14,296 new cases of COVID-19 yesterday. 6,727 patients recovered during the last 24 hours and were discharged from hospitals. More from our Ahmedabad correspondent.
Maximum 5,790 new cases of COVID-19 reported from Ahmedabad, while Surat recorded 1,690 new cases. 157 patients lost their lives yesterday. With this, the death toll has reached up to 6,328. Gujarat has now 1,15,000 active cases at present, out of which 406 patients are on ventilator. 1,24,539 persons were vaccinated yesterday. Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has added 9 new areas in the micro-containment zone after detection of new cases. Yogesh Pandya, AIR News, Ahmedabad.
In Tamil Nadu, a partial lockdown will start from today. Cinema halls, gyms, recreation clubs, bars, auditoriums and meeting halls were shut down from 4 this morning. A report from our correspondent.
The state government clamped curfew yesterday and locked down in all the districts from today. Shopping malls and complexes will remain closed following COVID clusters. However, standalone grocery, vegetable and other outlets will be allowed after following the standard operating procedures. In Tamil Nadu, over 15,000 people tested positive yesterday alone. As many as 11,000 people got discharged from hospitals after treatment. The active cases increased to more than 1 lakh. Chennai alone reported over 4,000 new cases and more than 31,000 people are undergoing treatment at various hospitals. Joy, AIR News, Chennai.
In Madhya Pradesh, Corona curfew imposed in Bhopal has been extended till 3rd of May. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan said that Corona curfew imposed in the state has stabilized COVID positivity rates. More from our Bhopal correspondent.
Earlier, Corona curfew was imposed in Bhopal city till April 26th. It has now been extended for one more week in Bhopal and Barasia town of the district till 6 a.m. on May 3rd. Essential services will be exempted from the Corona curfew. The positivity rate is continuously declining from 24.29% on April 22nd. It has come down to 23.01% on April 25th. At the same time, the number of patients recovering is also increasing. Pooja Pivardhan, AIR News, Bhopal.
You are listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Polling underway for 7th phase of assembly elections in West Bengal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi orders setting up of 551 oxygen plants in hospitals from PM CARES Fund. Centre bans use of liquid oxygen for all non-medical purposes. ITBP runs Sardar Patel COVID Care Centre to be made operational in Delhi this morning. Centre to continue giving COVID vaccine doses free of cost to states and union territories from its 50% quota. US government lifts export ban on essential raw materials required for manufacturing COVID vaccine in India. Indian women's recurve team bags gold medal at Archery World Cup in Guatemala. And Delhi Capitals beat Sunrisers Hyderabad through Super Over in IPL cricket. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो कुछ वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे.
Welcome back to the morning news on All India Radio. The centre will continue giving COVID vaccine doses from its 50% quota to the states and union territories for free during the phase 3 of vaccination drive. These vaccines will continue to be administered by states and union territories. In a Facebook post, Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan said the balance 50% quota grants flexibility for states, as many states had requested that the vaccination process be opened up for them now. The balance 50% quota will give them the freedom to vaccinate groups that they deem as priority. This quota is also open for private sector to pool in its resources so that the combined effort of Team India can be deployed to vaccinate every adult in the earliest possible time. The vaccination process through central government route will continue as before, and the entire expense of this will continue to be borne by the centre. The private sector route will empower a large number of people to get themselves quickly vaccinated outside the government route. In essence, those who can afford to get them at the private sector rates will go ahead. The government has advised states and union territories on intense action and local containment measures in COVID-19 affected districts for effective management of COVID surge. Union Health Ministry said local containment may be undertaken for a period of 14 days for breaking the chain of transmission. The ministry also expressed the urgent need for states to consider strict COVID management and control measures in surge areas to bring the situation under control to contain the spread of infection in areas reporting higher cases and surge. The government has asked the states that prompt and targeted action needs to be focused on specific districts, cities and areas in order to flatten the current curve of the epidemic. It said well-defined geographies with more than 10% positivity or 60% bed occupancy are liable for intensive actions. The ministry said districts fulfilling any one of the two criteria are to be considered for taking intensive action and local containment measures.
Sardar Patel COVID Care Centre and Hospital at Chhatarpur in South Delhi will start functioning from 10 a.m. today. Standard operating procedure for admission of patients will be strictly followed and all laid down protocols will be adhered to. Talking to AIR News, ITBP DG SS Deswal said that no walk-in admissions will be allowed in this centre and only patients referred by district surveillance officers will be admitted.
We are going to start Sardar Patel COVID Care Center and Hospital at Radha Swami Campus, Chhatarpur in Delhi. It's almost 500 beds, and we will start admissions here for treatment on Monday morning after 10 o'clock. Admissions will be made on the recommendations of district authorities after checking of their government documents and need for hospitalization. Because in several cases, only consultation can do and patients can stay at home. So for this filtration, district authorities will be utilized, and on their recommendations as earlier, admissions will be made.
ITBP said patients will be first reporting at the reception. After initial documentation, physical examination will be done, and they will then be admitted to the hospital at their allotted bed. A kit will be provided to them after their admission. All medical treatment, medicines, food and other facilities will be provided free of cost. Services of counsellors will also be provided. The Home Ministry has designated ITBP as the nodal force for operationalizing the Sardar Patel COVID Care Center at Radha Swami, Beas, Chhatarpur in the national capital. A total of 22,933 new confirmed cases of coronavirus infection were reported in Delhi in the last 24 hours, taking the total number of cases to over 10,27,000. The Delhi government has said that over 9,18,000 people affected with coronavirus have been cured so far. In the last 24 hours, more than 21,000 people recovered and 350 deaths were reported in the city.
In Bihar, fresh cases of COVID-19 continue to rise rapidly. Record number of 12,795 fresh cases were reported in the state yesterday. 118 deaths were also reported. With this, casualties due to pandemic has gone up to 2,155. Positivity rate has gone up to over 12%. Dr. Randeep Guleria, Director, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, has said that COVID-19 infection is normal infection in maximum cases. He said in 85 to 90% cases, the infection is in the form of fever, sneezing, sore throat, body ache, and cough, and the maximum number of infected people will recover without any specific treatment in the form of remdesivir, oxygen, and other medicines. He said only 10 to 15% will have severe infection, and they need remdesivir and other medicines.
अगर आपकी सैचुरेशन 95, 94, 97 है, ऑक्सीजन की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. अगर आपको लगे कि सांस की तकलीफ है, चेस्ट में कंस्ट्रिक्शन हो रही है, तो डीप ब्रीदिंग एक्सरसाइज करें, पेट के बल लेट सकते हैं, उससे भी आपकी सैचुरेशन बढ़ जाएगी. लेकिन ये पैनिक करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है और एकदम ऑक्सीजन लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है. इससे आप ऑक्सीजन की जो सप्लाई है उसको कम करेंगे, और जब आपको ऑक्सीजन की जरूरत नहीं है और ऑक्सीजन आप लगाएंगे, किसी व्यक्ति जिसको ऑक्सीजन की जरूरत है उसको आप ऑक्सीजन डिनाई कर रहे हो और उसके लिए वो लाइफ सेविंग हो सकती है. तो इसलिए मैं ये भी कहना चाहूंगा कि ऑक्सीजन का मिसयूज ना करें, रेमडेसिविर का मिसयूज ना करें, पैनिक ना करें. मेजॉरिटी ऑफ पेशेंट्स जो हैं वो घर पे अपने आप को आइसोलेट करके ठीक हो सकते हैं, हॉस्पिटल आने की जरूरत नहीं है. अगर हम होम आइसोलेशन ठीक से करेंगे, अपने डॉक्टर से संपर्क करके अपने आप को मॉनिटर करेंगे, वार्निंग साइंस की तरफ ध्यान देंगे, तो हॉस्पिटल की भीड़ भी कम होगी. जिन लोगों को बेड की जरूरत है उनको बेड मिलेगा और उनकी पूरी तरह से इलाज हो पाएगा.
The US government has decided to lift the export ban on essential raw materials required by the vaccine manufacturer in India for production of COVID-19 vaccine. This development comes after National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and his US counterpart Jake Sullivan had a telephonic conversation regarding the spike in COVID-19 infections across the country. Mr. Sullivan affirmed America's solidarity with India. This also comes after several US lawmakers voiced their concerns over the COVID-19 situation in India. They exerted pressure on the Biden administration to extend assistance, release vaccines and other raw materials critical for India. The White House said US has identified sources of specific raw material urgently required for Indian manufacture of the Covishield vaccine that will immediately be made available to India. In a tweet, US President Joe Biden said that America is determined to help India deal with the spike in COVID cases, just as India had helped Americans when US hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Earlier in April, Serum Institute of India's SII CEO Adar Poonawalla had requested the US President to lift the embargo of raw material exports from the US. SII is currently manufacturing AstraZeneca Oxford's Covishield vaccine. Delhi Capitals beat Sunrisers Hyderabad through Super Over in IPL cricket. More from our correspondent.
In IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals moved up to the second spot on the points table after defeating Sunrisers Hyderabad after the first super over of IPL 2021 at M.A. Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai last night. In an afternoon battle for top spot in the points table at Mumbai Wankhede Stadium yesterday, Chennai Super Kings all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja was star of the show. Punjab Kings will take on bottom-placed Kolkata Knight Riders tonight. In the bilateral T20 series, Pakistan sealed the series against Zimbabwe with a 24-run victory last night at Harare. Pakistan skipper Babar Azam became the fastest to score 2,000 in T20 internationals in Kandy. The first test between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh ended in a draw. Bangladesh were 100 for 2 before persistent rain forced the umpires to call off the game. In archery, Indian women's recurve team grabbed a gold in the Archery World Cup Stage 1 in Guatemala yesterday. Knocked 4-4 in the shoot-off, the Indian team claimed their first World Cup team gold after a gap of 7 years. Later, Ankita Bhakat and Atanu Das picked the bronze. In tennis, Rafael Nadal secured his first title of the year to claim the 12th Barcelona Open title in the ATP's longest match of 2021. The Spaniard secured his 87th career title. Nadal returns to number 2 in the ATP rankings, climbing over Daniil Medvedev. Number 3 seed Aslan Karatsev of Russia clinched the biggest win of his career when he defeated Novak Djokovic to reach the Serbia Open final. Sports Desk, AIR News, Delhi.
Now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. National capital Delhi is likely to have a mainly clear sky. The maximum temperature will be around 38 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature recorded was 19 degrees. Mumbai will have partly cloudy sky. Maximum temperature is expected to be around 35 degrees Celsius. The lower level of temperature was 25 degrees. Chennai is expected to have partly cloudy sky with a temperature rising up to 35 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature was 28 degrees Celsius. Kolkata will have partly cloudy sky with possibility of development of thunder lightning. The temperature will rise from a minimum of 27 degrees Celsius to a maximum of around 39 degrees. Srinagar will have mainly clear sky and the temperature will hover between 6 and 24 degrees Celsius. Jammu will have mainly clear sky. Minimum temperature was 17 degrees Celsius while the maximum will be around 34 degrees. Leh is expected to have mainly clear sky. The minimum temperature was -2 degrees Celsius while maximum will be 13 degrees. Gilgit will have mainly clear sky. The temperature will move from a minimum of 9 to a maximum of 27 degrees Celsius. Muzaffarabad is also likely to have mainly clear sky and the maximum temperature will be around 30 degrees. The minimum was 12 degrees. Dehradun will witness mainly clear sky. Chandigarh will have mainly clear sky with temperatures likely to move from 16 to 37 degrees Celsius. And in Hyderabad, rain or thunder showers may occur towards evening. The maximum temperature will be around 39 degrees and minimum temperature was 25 degrees Celsius.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. As surge hits a new peak, Centre approves oxygen plants at public health facilities. Hindustan Times reports 551 districts to get PSA medical oxygen plants under PM CARES, while the Statesman observes government bars use of liquid oxygen for non-medical purposes. The dailies have observed about the aids coming from different countries in response to SOS by India. The Times of India writes, from vaccine inputs to PPE, US pledges COVID help. A front-page headline in the Economic Times reports, from May 1, pick a COVID vaccine of your choice. The paper adds, private vaccination centres will have to declare jab on offer, stock and price on the CoWIN platform. No walk-in for COVID jabs. CoWIN registration must, writes the Pioneer. To prevent obstruction in fight against the pandemic, the government asked social media platforms to remove critical content and fake news. The Asian Age headline says, Twitter, Facebook remove 100 posts after government orders. All dailies have mentioned the demise of Padma Bhushan awardee classical singer Pandit Rajan Mishra. The Times of India notes, Banaras Gharana exponent Rajan Mishra dies of COVID. And finally, the Economic Times carries a positive story which speaks about how companies are helping employees with medication, hospitalization, vaccination, psychiatric care and even last rites services.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Polling underway for 7th phase of Assembly elections in West Bengal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi orders setting up of 551 oxygen plants and hospitals from PM CARES Fund. Centre bans use of liquid oxygen for all non-medical purposes. ITBP runs Sardar Patel COVID Care Centre to be made operational in Delhi this morning. Centre to continue giving COVID vaccine doses free of cost to states and union territories from its 50% quota. US government lifts export ban on essential raw materials required for manufacturing COVID vaccine in India. Indian women's recurve team bags gold medal at Archery World Cup in Guatemala. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a nice day.